You need to stop thinking about your job as just a job and start thinking of it as a business partnership. Or at least that's what me and my friend Nathan Rose in this conversation set out to discuss. The mindset shift on how you can take back your career. In a world that's changing more than ever, check out this conversation to see how the things that we are practically doing or learning in order to protect ourselves in the future. Hey, welcome to this week's episode of Power Talks. My name is Griffin Lickfeld, the host of the Citizen Developer Channel and Power Talks podcast. And today I'm joined by a special guest and good friend, Nathan Rose. Nathan, thank you so much for being here. You are a returning guest to the show, and I just enjoy our conversations. I could probably say this with every guest, but it means a lot for you to be here, man. I wanted to start our conversation today around this concept of failing forward or falling forward. This is a principle that you live by, and you've mentioned just as I continue to get to know you as well. Let's start it off with some story time. What's a good example of what helped kind of hammer home this philosophy for you?
Definitely, and awesome to see you again, Griffin. Thanks for having me back. So good to hang out again. So, failing forward is not my idea. I wish I could take credit for it, but there's a really good book by Scott Adams, the guy who does the Dilbert comic strip called "How to Fail at Everything and Still Win Big," where he talks about this theory, and it's probably not even Scott Adams' idea, but it's basically this idea that try something, and if it doesn't work out, you take what you learned and along the way and you apply it to the next thing you do. And it runs completely counter to everything we've been taught in school, right? Because in school you're taught that there is one right answer, and if you don't get it, then you have failed. And it's like, okay, maybe in math that's the way it works, but like in life, like life doesn't work like that. And so um yeah, so I want to give you and everybody listening, like, just permission to try that thing, whatever it is you want to try, that career move, that hobby, whatever, and just try it. And so I'll give you an example. So a number of years ago, I joined a startup here in New Zealand as the first employee, and it was a phenomenal opportunity, right? I was young in my career as a consultant. It was an opportunity to come be employee number one at a startup, work alongside a Microsoft MVP. And so it was like, man, this is like, this is the opportunity. And so I went for it. And about 3 months in, I was like, I am not the guy for this. What the founder needs is well beyond where I'm at, and I can't even say when I'm going to be there. If I think I'm 6 months out, that's a different conversation. But I am not the right guy, and so it was hard, right? I mean, we sat down, we had a really candid conversation, and I just said, look, I am not the guy for this, and that's a scary thing to do. Um, but long story short, TLDR. Um, it set me up for opportunities that I took that got me to where I am today. And this guy's business is doing better than ever. So, we both like, even though it didn't quite work out, by just going, hey, we tried it, it didn't work, let's just be honest about it. We both, um, you know, are much better off for it because we got further along, and we're still really good friends to this day, which is the most important thing. So yeah, I would say it's basically, you try something, and then whatever it is that you've learned along the way, people you've met, skills you've picked up, you then apply to the next thing and the
Yeah.
thing after that. So that's what
Yeah,
failing
totally.
forward is.
I follow a couple like entrepreneur creators, and not to name drop or
Yeah,
anything, but like a lot of them talk about that winning in business is just like how fast can you get your 1,000 failures in, and it's like some people it
yeah,
takes 20
exactly.
years to fail 1,000 times, but they're like, okay, if it takes a
Yeah,
thousand failures to be successful, how can I fail 1,000 times in 1 year? So then after a year, I'm successful. And
exactly.
I've
Yep.
always thought that like switching
Yeah.
your mindset towards that is really interesting. You know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%. And I mean, I guess the thing is like you're not setting out to fail. Like I think that's where, it's like I'm not trying to get it wrong, but I'm willing to um do it, and if it doesn't work out, um because I mean the reality is it's like with what we do every day in Dynamics Power Platform land, right? You can read the Microsoft Docs for hours, or you can just spin up a trial and do the thing, and you are going to learn way more doing the thing than you are from studying it for hours
Yeah,
and hours and hours. So that's not to say that you shouldn't read, but what I am saying is go out, get your nose bloodied. That's
for
the
sure.
best career
For
advice I
sure.
ever
And
got.
I think something that I'm currently walking through as well, and like what you were talking about is that like nothing is a forever commitment, you know? Like
Yeah,
yeah, maybe your good friends might make fun of you or something, or if you started a hobby and were
yeah,
really bad at it and it went nowhere or something like that. But
yeah,
I mean, at the end of the day, like something I need to remember is the decisions I'm making, aren't decisions for the next 40 years of my life. They're decisions right now and the
yeah,
next opportunity, the next chapter. And
yeah.
you can still be totally committed, when you're making those steps. But
Yep.
I don't know, it helped give me a little peace of mind of like, hey, this might be
Yeah,
scary, this might be uncomfortable, but nonetheless, like it's not, if you hate it, it's not your life for the next however long. Um,
exactly. Yeah, yeah. I mean, the world has really changed from our parents and grandparents' generation where you went to work and you worked there forever, right? And it's
yeah.
just not like that anymore. And so, I mean, sure, if you find a place where it's like, yeah, I love it and I'm gonna, spend the next several decades here, awesome. But for most people, it doesn't work like that. And, so you just go, okay, I'm here for now, and here's what I'm going to learn. And if it doesn't work out,
Yeah.
go on to the next thing.
Something that
So,
is interesting, not
yeah,
to contradict everything we're saying, but just a
yeah,
recent episode, I talked to Joel Lindstrom, another kind of renowned
yeah,
MVP, and he's kind of been at Hitachi where
yeah,
he's at now for decades, and it was an interesting
yeah,
conversation to hear his point, and he would not disagree with what we're saying, even though if you like looked at the places he's
yeah,
worked on LinkedIn, I guess like it sounds like he's
yeah,
disagreeing, but
yeah,
like these next steps or willing to try things don't necessarily have to be going somewhere else either. So like I guess
correct,
talking to that
correct.
person of
Yep,
like, hey, you may really love the people you work with, or the benefits outside
yeah,
of the compensation or something of your company, like find a way to take that chance, take that next step, and fail forward, even there. So
yep. Exactly. I mean, it might be as simple as, you know what, I tried pre-sales and I want to go back to delivery, or yeah,
yeah,
something like that. If you're at a small partner, you're going to wear all those hats. If you're at a big partner, that can be a little harder to do, but you can still do it. And so you can say, hey, I tried this, it's not for me, and still stay in the same
yeah,
same organization.
yeah,
So
definitely.
yeah,
I wanted to ask you, just in talks about like, I don't know. I love talking about career advice, and not that I'm an expert. I
yeah,
recognize that I'm a young professional, but I love to just like tap into other people's expertise. You also said that you describe your
yeah,
career as a business partnership. Um, I'm in all
yeah,
honesty, I'm really not too sure what you're talking about here and what you mean. Like
yeah,
what does this mean?
yeah, yeah. So I think a lot of us who are FTEs, full-time employees, have this mindset of I go to work for a company and I just it's kind of this idea of our parents and grandparents' generation of I will just be here forever, I'll stay as long as I possibly can, and you just kind of burrow in and I do my job and then I go do my other things. And I guess the reality is the career marketplace is just so dynamic today. You really have to think of yourself as an entrepreneur, as a business person, whether you work for somebody else or not. It's kind of like when Jay-Z said, "I'm not a businessman, I'm a businessman," and that's the mindset, right? So what we're really talking about is creating value. It's not so much about trading time for money as much as it is what value am I creating? Because if I'm not creating value, the reality is at some point, wherever I work, they're going to figure out that, you know what, we don't need you anymore, and you're going to be gone. And it's that's just the reality of the marketplace. And so I would say just always be focusing on opportunities where you're learning, growing skills, and creating value. Because the more value you create, the more you
Yeah.
get paid. That's just kind of
Yeah.
how that
Yeah.
works. So
I believe in that mantra as well, and that every outside of
yeah,
the fact that every person has value, right? Not talking about
yeah,
mentally or psychologically or spiritually or
yeah,
emotionally or anything like that. We're talking from I guess a business value or a monetization value stance. But I mean I
yeah,
agree with that wholeheartedly as well. But something that has been interesting for me to have to kind of continue to learn is that idea that even as a full-time employee, um, like approaching my career as an entrepreneur, and that's something that maybe like the Citizen Developer channel and the content and the blog and the community and the podcast and like all of this
yeah,
stuff has helped me a little bit think about the
yeah,
side hustle, I guess, that it is, and the value
yeah,
that it brings. But I
yeah,
think it's really interesting
yeah.
for everybody to not to make who their employer is transactional, but nonetheless like recognize that you might have more. I don't want to say power, but I guess I'll say power. Like you might have more power than you think, as far as career moves and what you do for work.
Oh, 100%. And I mean, by doing the things that you're doing, Griffin, you are already ahead of 90% of the people who don't, right? Because, starting a podcast, I mean, it's not a hard thing to do, right? It's not I mean, I'm not
No, I
trying
hear
to
you.
like, punch down on it, but it's
Yeah.
not hard, right? But most people just don't do it. And a lot of it is, oh, I don't have time. A lot of it is, I think a lot of it is just fear, right? What if I fail? What's everybody going to think? What's everybody going to say? Because that's, like when we try things and it doesn't work out, right? That's the worst part of it is when, you're already feeling bad because it's like, hey, I tried something, it didn't quite work. And then you've got people close to you saying, well, what did you learn from this? I knew it all along. And it's like, I told you. And it's like, okay, that's not helpful. Um, I think you just have to kind of ignore that sometimes and just say, you know what, I tried it and I'm going to go on to the next thing. But yeah, by doing stuff like this, like it's putting you like just so much further ahead because you've got a brand, you've got a name, and that's going to start to open doors for you in ways that it just doesn't for others. I'll give a quick example. So a few months ago, my boss asked me to help pre-screen some candidates for a role that we had on the team. And so I get sent a bunch of CVs, and I don't know how recruiters do their jobs because reading CVs is really boring. I mean, even mine, I'm just like, who wants to read this? It's really boring, right? But the first thing I look for is, do I know any of these names? Have I worked with any of them? Do I know them? No. All right. Well, do I know them like through the community? Have I seen them on YouTube? Have I seen them on LinkedIn? No, I haven't. Now I got to read the CV, right? And all the CVs were amazing, right? They all had really good experience. They all had really good backgrounds and certifications. So now how do I make a decision, right? I don't have time to talk to every single one of them. And so that's the position that you're in if you are not kind of having that value creation mindset of, what do I do that's unique to set myself apart? Because if I'm just showing up saying, pick me, pick me, pick me, I'm competing against everybody else who's doing the same thing. And, the reality is, even though I might look really good on paper, so do a lot of other people.
If you are liking the conversation, be sure to let me know by liking the video and commenting down below what it is specifically you are getting out of it. And if you are interested in learning more about the Microsoft Power Platform, you're going to want to click on the first link down in the description down below to get access to a beginner's Power Platform guide led by me. This is a completely free, self-paced course that has hand-picked knowledge, everything that you need to know to be able to go and get your first Microsoft certification as soon as possible. The reality is not a lot of people can say they love what they do. And I feel very blessed to be able to say that I enjoy what I do for work as a Microsoft consultant. And if you want to start that journey alongside me today, be sure to follow and click on the first link down in the description down below. Now let's get back to the conversation. I think about as well, like if people really don't want to put themselves out there as much, like online, like I totally get that and hear that, you know, it's a perfectly valid thing to not want to do. Let me encourage you that
Yeah.
I think the thing that's served me the most about the Power Talks episode is not the performance or the views that it's gotten. I would be lying if I said I
Yeah.
loved the performance of these from like a view perspective.
Yeah.
But the impact, I feel like that it's the most impactful thing that it has been on me is that I have sat down and had hour and a half conversations with 50 experts and MVPs in the industry. And so I now
Yeah.
have 50 friends, you know, and not
Yeah.
that, you know, you can be best friends with anybody after an hour, but I'm able to, you know, tap people in my network much more comfortably if for like if an
Yeah.
opportunity were to come up
Yeah.
and I would want some help or some I have people that I can reach out to, and
Yeah.
because we've already established a
Exactly.
connection in some capacity, they're
Yeah.
much more comfortable with like, oh yeah, let's hop on a call and figure this out, you know. And so
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
at
Because you're
least at
creating
right now,
value.
that's what
And
I'm finding is how it serves me the most. And not that my motive behind this is
yeah.
to get all these people to, you know, help me, but you know what I mean? Like that's what I'm finding
Yeah.
is so
Yeah.
impactful. So even like just to anybody out there, even if you don't want to put yourself like online, just like DM people on LinkedIn. You'd be amazed at how many people respond. DM people on LinkedIn
Yeah.
and ask for a 30-minute or an hour chat just to get to know them because you know, you want to start meeting more people and have more than LinkedIn connections. And that's basically the spiel. I mean, I don't know if you can attest, but that is the
Yeah.
process.
You'd be
Yeah.
amazed who will say yes. So I've been reading this book. I think it's called Just Listen, and I forget who it's by, but it's a really really good book. And the chapter I was reading last night, he was talking about if you haven't been told no, then you haven't asked for enough. You know, because we're all afraid of being told no, right? Oh, what if I ask for this and I say no? I'll be really embarrassed. Not necessarily. You just now you know kind of where the boundary is. You know, like if so taking your example, right? If you ask for, now if you DM me and ask for like 4 hours of my time, I probably can't do that. But if you want like 30 or 60 minutes, like I can find time for that, right? But if you're worried and you're like, oh, could I only get 5 minutes? Well, yeah, I can give you 5 minutes, but I might have been willing to give you a lot
Yeah.
more, but you didn't ask. And so yeah, I would say just don't be afraid to ask. Now, the one thing that I will throw out there, because I'm getting this a lot lately, is like I'll get connects on LinkedIn, and the next thing I know, in my DMs, there's like, here's my CV. What roles do you have? And like I'm just like, look, I'm not trying to be a jerk or anything, but
Yeah.
come
Sponsored, not
on,
sponsored
like
DMs out here, you know.
yeah, yeah, like yeah. I mean, at least like put a little effort into it. Like make me
You want to
think
be
that
friends?
you're
Right. For sure, for sure.
yeah.
I totally hear you. I totally hear. And I yeah, let me just tell anybody out there, like the community is great. People are definitely comfortable with at least responding. And sure, I've had a couple people say no, but it's really just because of calendars,
Yeah,
and you know, availability. It's really
yeah,
not like a no, get out of here, peasant. You know, it is
yeah,
not that at all. I had
yeah,
I won't name drop. I had one person of probably the 100 people I've DM'd at this point, that I
yeah,
didn't think the way they communicated it was that well. So not to scare anybody, but maybe it was just a language thing. I don't know, but nonetheless, like
yeah,
you're
yeah,
totally okay, to reach out to people and build that community and everything there.
yeah. You'd be amazed, how accessible
Yeah,
people
for
really
sure.
are.
I wanted to switch up the combo, to something, I don't know, maybe more technical. Um, you kind
Yeah.
of I've started talking a lot about Dataverse MCP. Um,
Yep.
I I don't know. I must live under a rock. I don't feel like I know very much about Dataverse MCP and like the
Yep.
potential that AI holds in this. What is Dataverse MCP?
Yeah.
Why is this something that you find that you're talking about so much and kind of
Yeah.
spearheading, I guess, in the stuff you're bringing to the
Yeah.
community?
Yeah. So model context protocol is something that you probably started hearing about maybe late last year, early this year. And I'll be candid, it took me a while to get my head around what it is. The common explanation you'll hear is that it's USB-C for your AI applications, right? You can kind of plug, whether I'm plugging it into my iPhone, into my laptop, um, but it's basically a common standard between large language models and then data and applications. And so what this means is we can take Claude, we can take ChatGPT, all these different models, and pair it up with things like Dataverse and Dynamics 365 and have it start doing things. Now, the analogy that I actually prefer is that it's like the sampling machine. So in the late 1980s, a Japanese company called Akai came out with a sampling machine. And what that let artists do was take clips of songs and various sound bits and put it into their songs. So this became huge in the hip hop world. And so a lot of classic hip hop anthems like Straight Outta Compton and Can I Kick It and Fight the Power all used this machine extensively because it was user friendly and it was relatively inexpensive, and so it democratized the creation of hip hop as we've come to know it. Because before that, you had to go into a studio, and sampling something was expensive, and you needed an engineer and all kinds of expertise, and then suddenly you didn't. And model context protocol is the same way because up until now, you have needed some pretty heavy duty developers to take a large language model and an existing database or application and bring it together. We've started to see it kind of happen in a more low code way in Copilot Studio over the last year or so with things like actions that have been renamed tools and things like agent flows and Power Automate. But you still have to have a fairly reasonable level of expertise to do that, right? Like, the idea of low code is that you don't need to be a dev by trade, but you still need to have a fair bit of expertise, which is kind of how you and I have gotten paid over the last few years. With model context protocol, all I have to do is write sentences in the description of my agent, and now it does stuff in Dataverse. So I can say, go create records, look up records, do stuff. And so it's like, this is absolutely crazy, right? Because this is, natural language is the ultimate low code, right? So this makes it intuitive, accessible. We're going to be able to create more stuff faster using technologies like model context protocol. So it is very, very exciting to see. Now, as at the time of our conversation, so it's August 2025. It is still in preview, but I suspect we're going to see it GA in the near term. I don't. That's just my opinion. And I do think, we've seen a lot of change in Copilot Studio and how we do stuff in terms of like we had actions and then we had agent flows. I think MCP is kind of going to be the standard for a while. I think the dust is
So
starting to settle. So
what does that
yeah,
mean for
it is.
like an end user? Like I open up my
Yeah,
dynamic sales app and there's just like a text box or something, and I type in there, show
yeah.
me my leads or
I
create a new
I
lead.
think it's at some point, yeah. So for example, if you use it with Claude Desktop, you can, and you've hooked it up to Dataverse, you can say, "Hey, give me a pie chart of my contacts, and show it by city." So stuff that like dashboardies type stuff. So you know how like on every project, we always have to spend a lot of time doing dashboards. That's the thing every client wants. And once it goes into production, nobody ever uses these things, but it takes a lot of our time. And I'm terrible at charts and dashboards. Like I don't know the difference between an X and a Y axis. Like I struggle massively with them. I just kind of click around till I'm like, I think that looks right. And yeah, I was so grateful when the Power BI people started taking over most of the stuff. I'm like, thank you, because it's not me, right? But now with Model Context Protocol, you can literally chat with your data and get graphs and charts and stuff like that on the fly. And it's like, that's pretty cool because you know, that's something that tends to be asked for, tends to take a lot of time. And now it's like, I can just literally
Yeah.
chat with my data and get it. But yeah, as a salesperson, you could literally just be like, hey, what do I
Yeah.
need to do today? And
What is
yeah.
okay? And maybe this is an unanswerable question, but I instantly start thinking. I've been, learning a lot about Copilot Studio, and have really centered a lot of my content around how to create agents effectively and all the nuances and different sort of conversation nodes and everything. I guess I start to wonder.
Yeah.
Okay, Dataverse MCP. Is this more of like, I'm still trying to wrap my head around it, like you said. Is this more of like I have my Copilot Studio agent and I can like enable MCP, or is like Dataverse MCP like its own entire agent, or like maybe this is
Yeah.
unanswerable. But like, where do you think that is, I
Yeah.
guess, is going?
Yeah, so it's basically a tool for your agent. So where you go in your agent today to hook up to Power Automate or create, they call them tools, but they were actions previously when you do stuff. You basically go there and you just say, um, you choose the option for Model Context Protocol, choose Dataverse. You don't have to do any config beyond that. So when you've done other stuff, like tools or cloud agent flows, you've had to go put in a bunch of stuff. All you literally do is say connect to Dataverse with Model Context Protocol, and then you go back to your agent instructions and you just start writing out stuff and having it do stuff. So one of the cool demos that I did with it, I was pretty excited about. So last year, we were working with Semantic Kernel, which is more of a pro code thing that lets you bring data and LLMs together. And so we built a thing to let salespeople chat with their data to build quotes, right? I need 4 of these and 6 of those and that type of thing. And so I was like, okay, I wonder if we could do this with Dataverse MCP. And so I wrote out these lengthy agent instructions, and it would kind of work, and then sometimes it wouldn't because I'd run out of tokens. And I'm thinking, okay, I've gotta go, you know, make this more efficient. How do I do that? And then I had this like crazy thought one day. I was like, why don't I take these agent instructions and put it into GitHub Copilot and let that do the work for me? So I literally said, make this more efficient for um, for token use. And it was kind of not working. And then I was filming a YouTube video and I'm like, all right, I'm going to show this and it's not going to work, but at least people see it. And I'm filming the YouTube video and like my jaw hits the desk because I'm like, oh, that worked. I was expecting to show you that it wasn't going to work, but it worked. So yeah, I could literally, like chat with an agent and create it wasn't a quote, it was an opportunity, but kind of the same concept with products in it. And I didn't have to do all kinds of extensive configuration. I literally just wrote instructions for the agent. Even better, I had it proofread by GitHub Copilot, and which made it more efficient. And it's like, man,
Yeah,
this is crazy. So very, very exciting
definitely.
times
I
ahead.
I do feel like maybe organizations, this sounds super scary, but like the idea that you can enable people to go and create their own agents easily, I think is really
Yeah,
impressive. And I think about like, I mean, not that I want to be out of a job, but like software development is, everybody knows, is really expensive. And the same is true even still for
yeah,
low code, developing power platform solutions and things. And I
yeah,
think where it could be really cool to see organizations being able to utilize with the config being so simple. Again, not saying I want
yeah,
to be out of a job, but like they can empower, if they can train their employees how to do it effectively and actually set up, all the governance and security and teams effectively,
yep,
can empower people to just go and make their own. Because employees and people are really creative on how they can make their jobs easier.
Yep.
That is something I have found
Yep.
in just my experience with
Yep.
kind of the training
100%.
on different things, is the ways people
Yep.
save stuff to their computer and then move it into this folder and then upload it to their
Yep.
email and then print the email so they can change it to a PDF and whatever. It's like, what are we
Yep.
doing here? Like, all
Yep.
sorts of wild
Yeah,
stuff.
exactly.
You'd be surprised.
Yeah.
So,
Yep. Oh, 100%. And I mean, look, there's a huge governance layer that is still being worked out. Now, the cool thing is in Copilot Studio, it respects your security roles. So even though the MCP server has access to all the tables and all the tools, if you don't have access to, say, like leads or something like that, when you ask it to do something, it's going to, I can't do that. So it's got that built into it. But there is kind of that bigger governance piece, which is, hey, we want to let people, maybe we'll let people update records, but not create them. We want to limit, what agents can do things. We want to limit, what will allow an employee, maybe we'll kind of ring fence this kind of green zone of, we'll let them use MCP with their Outlook or something like that, but we're not comfortable letting them do it in the
yeah,
finance system, which, seems like a responsible position. So,
for sure. What are some
yeah,
of the,
so that's all
yeah,
still being figured out.
absolutely. What are some of the biggest like learning curves or training pieces that you've noticed just in your, I'll call them AI solutions and projects, like some of the
Yeah.
biggest end user adoption challenges that you've had to hurdle?
Yeah. Yeah. So all of my AI projects to date have pretty much been just personal projects. It is really hard at the moment getting people across the line. I know that there are some large organizations that are looking at it. The ones that I've dealt with, I've come up against resistance, and a lot of it is just too hard basket. We don't want to have to come up with an AI strategy. I'll give you a really good example. So earlier this year, I was working with a client and they were using customer insights journeys, the artist formerly known as marketing, and we put in a custom channel for them to send SMS because here in New Zealand, something government Twilio isn't, you can't use it here. So if you want to use SMS and CIJ, you've got to put in a custom channel. Now the downside is you can't use the keywords functionality. So if somebody replies yes or no, you can't automate stuff out of the box. Now we used Power Automate to do that, but what we quickly found is there are lots of ways to say yes and no. English is a gloriously inspecific language, right? And if I try to account for more than like two or three of those, like I'm going to start breaking all the rules of good solution architecture, right? It's either going to be like the world's biggest switch statement
Yeah.
that nobody can maintain. There's going to be so many child flows we don't even know, where they are or what they're doing. And so this is like the perfect scenario for an agent because I said to them, look, an agent can read that unstructured data and very quickly say, is it a yes or a no, right? And then go call the automation to go, do whatever it is you want to do based on that. And the response was, yeah, we don't want to have to think about AI right now. Too scary, and so, but I was like, this is an awesome example, and I'm going to build it myself in my environment, and so I have. But that's kind of one of the first hurdles. So I suspect what we're probably going to see is you're probably going to see this in the SMB space a lot more because as a small business, right? You have problems you need to solve, and it's like, how do we fix this? How do we get value? Whereas if you go to enterprise, right, there's a bunch of guys like you, me and you sitting around the table whose job it is to dream up nightmare scenarios and say no. Now, at some point, it's going to become so compelling that it's like, okay, enterprise architects go away. We're doing this anyways. But for now, there's kind of enough concern that it's kind of like, yeah, we're not sure we want to be the first in that enterprise space. At least that's
What do you
what
feel
I've
like?
seen.
I'm
So
trying to put
yeah,
my head, like I'm trying to put on the shoes of business decision makers. Um, what is
yeah,
that first step of that you found that our organization is not using AI?
yeah,
We may be
yeah,
interested. kind of not really,
Yep.
we're open to having, hiring some pre-sales consultants for a
Yep.
conversation. What have you
Yep.
found? I mean, is the first step developing some kind of company-wide AI strategy and blueprint, and then, you know,
Yeah.
outlining that and everything that means, or what?
I
Go
think
ahead.
Yeah, I think the first thing is you just need to understand what it's doing. I think a lot of people get really scared with autonomous agents. And I had a comment on my YouTube channel a few weeks ago where a guy was like, I don't really get this Copilot Studio thing. Why wouldn't you just use Power Automate? And fundamentally, you need to understand that these are doing different things, right? And the crazy thing is that your sixth grade math teacher prepared you for the world of AI. This is insane, right? So do you remember in you had two types of math homework, right? You got the one where there's a bunch of problems you just had to solve, and then you had the one where you had to read a paragraph and figure out what
Yeah.
like word problems. I I was like I'm terrible at math, but so I hated word problems, but like that's what an agent is doing, right? An agent is, so when you did the word problem, right, you knew my context is math. I'm reading this not to correct grammar or summarize. I'm reading it to find what parameters I'm being asked to put into an operation and solve it. And that's what an agent's doing, right? When you say read these emails and figure out where to route it, that's all it's doing. And so um, I think getting people to understand that that's what it's doing. We're not replacing the stuff that we've done before. We're augmenting it. So that low level stuff that we've got somebody whose job it is to look at every single request coming in and figuring out, does it go down this route or that route? That's where agents
Yeah.
start to get really good. Now, you do need to, you definitely, you know, we still need grown-ups in the room. I wouldn't just turn the agents loose. So I was doing a demo. There's an hour flight south of here is the capital of New Zealand called Wellington, and I was down there in May, and I was doing a demo for a bunch of government people and showing agents in kind of a government scenario, and it was basically, can you answer something from your knowledge? Does this person need to create a case? Or if it's just somebody having a bad day, just send an empathetic response. I'm demoing this and I'm like, I am really grumpy today because the water at the community pool was too cold and, I'm very upset. And the agent started the email reply to me in this demo with, I'm sorry, you're grumpy today. And I'm like, no, like, oh my gosh, no, like, and so now it's not AI's fault, right? Because I told it to be empathetic. I didn't tell it not to say that. But this is all stuff that we're going to have to learn, right? And so we're still going to need humans in the loop looking at this stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's
That's
some of the stuff that I've
that is a
found
funny
from.
story, but I am still hung up on your analogy of the word math problems, because I think that's so true. I was
Yeah,
recently, I've kind of been working with a local nonprofit and basically building them a little Power Platform solution for them to manage. It's
yep,
basically a CRM in a sense, but
nice.
it's just kind of a little
Yep,
standalone Power app. And they basically wanted, we needed to implement Power Automate and some automations. And
yep,
like I began like trying to explain it to them as simply as I could. And these people are not technical at
yep,
all.
yep,
Amazing people, of
yep,
course, right? But they're not technical. They don't necessarily understand the back end. And I'm sitting here trying to explain,
yep.
okay, Power Automate only listens for one specific action, and then it does these
Mm-hmm.
very specific things that it outlines. And if like the input is
Yep,
wrong or this or whatever, it fails. Like it is very
yep,
structured. And so it was talking about how we need to actually, the experience needs to be this way so that we can have kind of a triggering event that triggers the Power Automate,
yep,
and all this stuff. And just like explaining that to them, I think
yep,
what you're talking about reminded me in that, yeah, there are a million ways to say yes. And we need
yep,
yes to trigger this Power Automate, for example. it's a funnel, right?
Yep.
It allows you to take all of these possibilities that should be a part of, say, that triggering event, without it being
Yep.
super specific to this value equaling, or this field equaling this value. And that happens to start,
Yep.
So I don't know. Thought it
Yep.
was interesting. Go ahead. I don't know if you have anything else to add there.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, I guess like, trying to explain this to, people who aren't in our world. The most important thing is just come up with really good analogies. So when you can say, you know, it's like a math problem. It's like this, it's like that, and then people go, okay, I get it now. You wanna make it really simple. They don't need to understand all the ins and outs of it. They just kind of need a mental model
Totally.
for what's
And
going on.
what I had kind of come up with, here's I guess a little nugget, towards the end of our conversation for anybody listening, was like the concept of sending an email. I was like, yeah, you
Yeah,
can type and draft the email and mess around with it as much as you want. Nothing's gonna happen
yeah,
until you click the send button. The moment you click that, you can't edit it.
yeah,
You can't do anything. It's gone. It's done. And so it
yeah,
was
yeah,
the experience is
yeah,
very similar to something like that. And so using that
yeah,
example, I found was worked out well, and helped break that. So,
yeah,
um, well, sweet man, I don't want to be done yet. We still got some time, but I wanted
yeah,
to, I guess, switch up topics a little bit one last time, and I think this could be considered the
yeah,
after hours happy hour. You have
yeah,
definitely you've talked about as well, like really focusing on your health and fitness, and you were
yeah,
talking about how it's also influenced, your professional life and everything. I'm super happy to hear about your
yeah,
professional life, but like I said, we're after hours now. All right, so keep that part short, okay?
yeah, yeah.
You better. Um, no, but like tell
Yeah.
us about, I guess, this newfound passion, and you have an upcoming weightlifting challenge. Like, dude, I want to hear all about it. What's up?
Yeah, in Vegas at Power Platform Conference at the end of October, Nick Dolman and I are going head to head in the gym. Hulk Dolman, as I call him, I'm going to make it a thing. So Nick power lifts for Canada. I started lifting weights in April, and I kind of threw down a challenge on YouTube. So Nick had made a video about vibe coding, and I was like, "Yeah, I'm not sure I agree with Nick. Here's my reasons." And
Sure.
Nick's an awesome guy. I met him in at MVP Summit back in March, and he's an awesome guy. But we're just kind of going back and forth on kind of how we saw the world. And I started my video with, like, I'm uncomfortable disagreeing with people smarter than me, and I'm always uncomfortable disagreeing with people stronger than me because I just started at the gym, and Nick powerlifts for Canada, and anyways, so Nick WhatsApps me and he's like, hey, that's awesome that you're at the gym, and anyways, this like weightlifting challenge like came, we're like, yeah, we should definitely train together. So we found this awesome gym off the strip in Vegas called the Dragon's Lair. It looks very very cool. So that is the plan that we are going to go. We're going to go lift. Now I get stupidly competitive, so I think we know who's going to be driving who to the emergency room. But
That's so fun.
yeah, but yeah, it's I'm looking forward to it. But yeah, I really started focusing on my health last year. I like it's I've always struggled, right? Like, I'm not an athlete. I like to eat. I don't like to move. And I got to the point last year where I was like, I can't do this anymore. This, I look and feel terrible. And I was gonna do so I haven't really talked about this, but I was gonna do the weight loss surgery, and so that was kind of the path I was gonna go down. I'd had a couple colleagues do it and do really well with it. Here's the thing they don't tell you. You don't just go have the surgery and look awesome. You first have to do all the diet and exercise because you got to lose a certain amount of weight before
Yeah.
they will even do it, right? So it's like, so you still have to go through all that pain and suffering, right? It's, yeah, I say pain and suffering, tongue in cheek, right? But anyways, so I got to the beginning of this year and I had kind of gotten down to the weight, and then I unexpectedly changed jobs. So I'm like, okay, I don't have sick leave, and so I can't really do this for a while. And then I was kind of like, you know what? I just kind of want to keep going with this. Like, it's a pretty major procedure. It's irreversible. And, the reality is like, you're already putting the building blocks in place
Yeah.
for, doing it without. So that's kind of the path I'm on. So yeah, I'd gotten a bike for the house last year, and so I do that. And then I joined. There's a gym. It's like a 10-minute walk from my house, and so I lift 3 times a week. So Shout out to the Jury Strength and Fitness crew. You guys are amazing. So it's a very, very cool gym. It's in like this old warehouse with like the big roll down doors. And so it's,
Yeah.
yeah, it's very, very cool. And everybody there is very nice. And so yeah, I lift 3 times a week now, and yeah, it's been really good. Like I feel like just have a lot more just mental clarity. You don't have kind of the brain fog, just a lot more energy. Um, yeah, so it's become a big part of my
That's super
life.
cool.
And
Yeah,
yeah,
I've
so
recently, so because I've moved, I had to find a new gym, and
yeah,
I have really since like January, I have not been lifting weights. I was
yeah,
taking up as much running as I could. That season is now behind me.
yeah,
I'm happy with never running again. But I have personally always really enjoyed lifting weights. Like even when I was an athlete, I
yeah,
would look forward to lifting weights just as much as I feel like I would look forward to
yeah,
practice. And like something that I
yeah,
always really enjoyed, and it's been a little disheartening getting back into it.
yeah,
Now that it's I was off from really lifting. I was pretty much just exclusively running
yeah,
for like 6 months, and
yeah,
it's been a little disheartening, but it's been really good. There's something about like
yeah,
I'm the type of person too where I like to have a gym where it's like maybe all the lights don't work and it doesn't have to be the cleanest place. I mean, I don't
yeah,
want it to be dirty, but
yeah,
like and the people
yeah,
that are there are just like about it. You know what I'm saying? Like I am not nothing
yeah,
against, hating
yeah,
on anybody else's gym or where they want to go, but like I want to feel like I'm in like a
yeah,
Rocky movie and just like hoodie on,
yeah,
like it's hot, it's sweaty,
yeah,
it's like,
yeah.
grindy. Like that's what I want. Uh,
Dude, you gotta come down to Drury
right?
Strength and Fitness. So like real talk, like days like today where so it's winter time here at the moment. It's really cold, at least overnight. And like days where I go train like before work, you can literally see your breath in the gym. Like Rocky
Yeah.
Four when he's training in Russia,
Yeah.
it's like that. And
That's
so
awesome.
yeah, you
That's
gotta come
awesome.
down, man.
Yeah, definitely. And so,
Yeah,
yeah, we found a gym we really like here. It's a little pricey, but I'm like, you know what? What are my
yeah,
priorities? My priorities are to be healthy. All right, let's have my finances reflect that. My priorities, So
yeah,
it's
yeah,
been biting the bullet, but it's okay. It's good, and it seems like it's got a good
yeah,
community too, which has been nice as
yeah.
well. So
Yeah, I mean, everybody in gyms are like really polite because everybody there can literally kick your ass. So you tend to be like really
sure,
polite in the
sure,
gym.
absolutely. Well, Nathan,
Yeah,
man, I appreciate all the time you've spent with me and the conversation today. I
yeah,
think it
of
was it
course.
was really insightful, at least for me. If people were listening to this and wanted to get in contact, hear more about your career advice or Microsoft or Dataverse MCP and everything going on, what would be the best
Yeah,
way to get in contact with you?
yeah. So either look me up on LinkedIn or I've got a website now. Like I built a website over Christmas. The website is nocodeNomercy.com. So it literally came. I was DMing with Rami Moonla about something, and I was like, no code, no mercy. And I was like, that's cool. I'm trademarking that. The only downside is like when I look at it, I'm like, if you look at it from like quickly, it kind of looks like no democracy. And I'm like, well, that's not so cool. But yeah, nocodeNomercy.com is my website. So I've got a
Perfect.
website now. So yeah, do reach out. And always happy
Sweet.
to connect and chat and
Sweet.
help out
I'll be sure
however I
to have a
can.
link
So
to your LinkedIn and to nocodeNomercy.com down in the description down below.
yeah,
So thanks, man, for being
awesome,
here. And
man.
thank you to you for sticking to the end of the video. My name is Griffin Lickfeld, the host of the Citizen Developer channel and Power Talks podcast. And I'm excited to connect with you in the next one.